think I need
Is that
that.
what I'm
Oh,
thinking
you're
about it?
recording.
Ooh, yeah. But
And I'll
there's
set up
already
my local.
yeah. Oh yeah. The actually I shouldn't give you proper permission for that. Um, I finally took the time to figure out how to do that. Yeah, so,
There it
get
is,
away
new
room. Oh no, I don't
project.
want to make
No,
you
I don't need to
host.
do that.
Do I remember how
Discard
to do this?
project.
No, I don't want to mute you. That wouldn't be fun. Chat, stop video. Make host, rename, allow to record local. There we go. I can't read in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that about myself the other day too, which was not fun. So I even had my glasses on. I was like, I can't see.
Mm.
922. No, I don't want that. I want
Yeah.
that.
See, I found this thing where I'm like terrified of my alarm clock. I got a new alarm clock about a year ago. I've rarely set it, just like Saturday mornings and like something like today, but it's so loud. I'm like, if I wake up beforehand, I'll like put it under my covers so it's muted.
Uh-huh.
It won't turn down.
I'll get that right there. Let me just do a quick test real quick.
Okay.
Check one, check two, check one, check two.
Yeah, you're
Check
coming
one,
through.
check two, check one, check two. Okay,
Oh, okay. You got a little
good deal. Yeah, I just want to make sure I had it on my end.
groovy.
Laptop speakers. No, I don't want that though. I want that. Let me try that one more time. Boom. Check one, check two. Che Guevara. Check one, check two. All right.
Okay. I guess I came through your headphones because I didn't hear it this time. So,
That's true. Yeah, that's what I did because I didn't want something. I wanted to make sure everything was coming through here and not my speakers, so it doesn't pop up on what we're recording.
right. Yeah. That'd be a little weird. No, yeah. When you first came on, there's a weird echo, but it went away almost immediately.
I
So it could
had
just.
the microphone off the webcam selected from just like a Teams meeting I was doing the other day.
Ah, okay. No, what was the worst sound quality? Oh, my regular co-host on the show, Mark. He tried to do. He wanted to do the prologue for the Midnight Sun using a filter
Right. A
because he
Rod
wanted.
Serling filter.
No, he wanted to sound like metal, right?
Oh, okay.
But he had gotten this thing so echoey and reverby. He was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, what's happening? Please stop. So of course I didn't edit that out. It's in there. So yeah,
Good.
people will
As
get to hear the
as well it
horrors.
should be.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah.
your notes. I didn't send you back mine. I just kind of like put my own thoughts sort of like next to yours.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I mean, to be honest, like again with Mark, he always sends me his notes, and I never look at them. So I guess that's yeah.
So you do have a regular co-host for this.
I mean,
I was
like
trying
I
to
have
think. Yeah.
regular people I invite, I
Yeah,
should
like
say.
regular rotation.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
and a couple of them, yeah. When we start doing those films, that is actually three people. It's like the Sci-Fi Sanctuary plus one. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we were like, well, we're choosing these sci-fis. It's fun, but there's like no aim or reason. So why don't we force ourselves to watch the Human Centipedes part two and three, but not one? So the other fun thing, yeah, I had one guy who's another guy who's regular on a show who chose all bad movies and then was posting on Facebook about how he owns on Blu-ray like half of the Internet Movie Database's bottom 100. He's very excited about that, and you replied like within minutes, so you got your name on this one, but every single person who I sent the list to so far has requested the Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas.
Shut up. That is so funny.
Everybody
I've
wants
I've
that.
never seen I probably have seen like I know I've seen at least part of it, but
So
I don't think I've ever seen like one because that was number two, right? The first one was the Flintstones movie, and
the
then the
second
Flintstones Viva La, yeah,
with
and it even had like some
recasting.
different actors and stuff like that
Uh-huh.
in it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So it should be a hot mess, but everybody wants that
yeah,
hot mess. It's kind of funny. So
kind of like a soft reboot, I guess.
actually Jessica asked for maybe I'll ask both you to come on for that one since it was
Oh, that'd be fun.
such a popular pick. But what do we we recorded the first two. I mean, they start coming out in April. We did a,
Okay.
Kurosawa's Ikiru, followed by Leslie Nielsen's 2001: A Space Travesty, which will
Oh, I never saw that.
it'll be it's not good. Nobody saw
No.
it. Followed by Fritz Lang's M, followed by Ballistic X versus Sever. So it's going to be like a kind of a whiplash sort
See,
of.
I never knew there was a that movie was kind of stigmatized as being bad. I remember coming out wanting to see it because that was Lucy Liu, right?
I think so. I haven't watched it yet. It's on my
Yeah,
computer
and
ready to
she's
watch it.
hot.
Yeah.
She's pleasing on the eyes. So I was like, I want to see this. Like this looks like, and especially at that point in my life, it was like total like just like dumb high octane entertainment, guy stuff. And I never got around to it. Just kind of was, came and went. I didn't see it, but I thought that was yeah, I didn't know it was kind of on ever made a list of bad movies.
Oh, I've seen on a lot of lists. I mean, I might. Who knows? I could watch it and love it. I don't know. I mean, some of the movies
Yeah.
on the bad list, like Spice World's on there. I love Spice World.
Hmm.
It's
Like even
it's
Armageddon, I read a thing today about how, bad Armageddon is and how it was like this giant box office, release, big budget movie, and it flopped. And I was like, don't no.
well, see, that one's not. I mean, obviously, it's not good. Probably not good enough for a top 100, but it's definitely not bad enough for the bottom 100. I mean, there's so many films where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's flawed or it's pretty
Hmm.
good, but it just doesn't fit that particular criteria. And then doing the IMDb, because at first I was like, oh, I could look at the AFI list. And I was like, well, that's all American. I don't want to just be American, right? So I was like,
Yeah,
where
that's
do you
no
go?
fun.
And it's like, well, critic lists would get a little like, too quirk sniffy, right? So I was like, oh, I'll go
Yeah,
for IMDb's populist list where everyone votes. So, you know, Luke hates lists. That's part of the charm of this. So
gotcha.
he hates
Um,
ratings.
yeah, I can't blame them there. Especially with critics, I think often don't really understand what they're looking at. Um, and I just mean that as like it's sort of like that, like the least coherent and understandable films will often get like best film nominations. And I'm like, nobody can explain what this movie's about. Nobody's even seen it. So if it's like they almost try to outdo each other by nominating like the least seen, um, least understood films, and that way they can kind of like outdo their critic buddies, by finding something that nobody else knew about.
But yes, that's why I like this list. You get near the top of it, and it's like The Godfather, Empire Strikes Back,
Mm-hmm.
Shawshank's number one, right? So, um,
Yeah.
but something we decided to stick at the end is for the good movies, we find like the worst user review and read that on the air.
Oh, that's fun.
For the best movies, find a really bad review of it. So that was pretty amusing.
All
Okay,
right, man. Well, I'm ready to kick in whenever you are.
okay. Let me give a 5 second gap to spot it, and then we will start. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we plunge into episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. As always, this is Matt here. Coming back for another round from the Mission Log, the Orville podcast, is Mike Richards. Howdy.
Howdy, Matt. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. I think I got that nice gravel in my voice this morning.
Yeah, I
Just
got the
having
same thing. I noticed when you said plunge back into it, I was thinking like the assassin's knife plunging into a dictator's back, maybe.
yeah, yeah, something like that. Oh, sorry, I was across. I just did the episode "The Grave," which has him plunging a dagger into the grave. But no, this is just like rolling out of bed, manly voice going on here. So, yes, I will. This is not even my earliest podcasting slot. I've done for people in the UK. I've done 6 a.m.s. So
Oh, baby.
6 a.m. and I need to sound coherent about something. I hope like a great speaker like Peter Falk. In today's
I will
episode, The
do my
Mirror.
best. Peter Falk, Columbo. I kept waiting for him to say one more thing before you go. I got one more question.
Yeah, yeah. But he tricks us into thinking he's like Fidel Castro in this one, right? Or something like
I
that.
thought, I mean, it might be a sign of my, lack of, cultural nuance or being able to detect cultural nuances, I found them believable.
Yeah, sure. And well, I'm about to do trivia here, and it's an interesting mix of people. Is any of them actually Latino? I don't know if any of these people are actually Latino.
The only other one that maybe Arthur Batanidas, but I don't think that's probably the right pronunciation of his name.
And I don't even think he made it to my. Oh yeah, yeah, he's the last one. Oh yeah, because
Uh,
at the very end, I was sitting there thinking, oh okay, this guy's like Hispanic. I'm like, wait a minute, I just did like 7 people here. So anyway, I guess I told you'll probably be able to get in a little nap during this trivia because we do have so many actors in this that have a
yeah,
few
we sure do.
things to
And
say.
Rodolfo Hoyos might answer the mail when you get to when you if he's made it into the trivia.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's like when there's like one main guy and one, two, three, six, you know,
Mhm.
all equally status supporting people. It's like, well, I can't leave anyone out. So here we go. Original air date was October 20th, 1961, and the script is a Serling. This is right smack in the middle of director Don Medford's 5 Twilight Zone episodes. He'll be back in a few weeks for Death's Head Revisited. Fidel Castro, I mean, Ramos Clemente, was played by Peter Falk. Peter is best known for his decades long stint as TV's Columbo, and he appeared in films such as Murder Incorporated, Murder by Death, along with many other non murder related films. In 1962, he was the first actor to be nominated for an Oscar and an Emmy in the same year. General De Cruz was played by Will Culliva. He doesn't have many professional credits and generally appeared in smaller character actor roles in films like The Spiral Road, starring Rock Hudson, and the Man from Uncle film compilation, The Spy and the Green Hat. Film compilations, and they took, put a two-parter together and threw it on the big screen. Richard Carden was dear, dear Alessandro. I'm sure I just got that wrong. Okay.
The short-lived Delisandro.
Thank you. Yeah, you did it. Okay. Well, he appeared in many films during the 1950s. He most often went uncredited. So maybe you just like to hang around on movie sets. I don't know. Vladimir Sokolov was Father Tomas. He regularly appeared on the stage, and his film career tracks all the way back to the silent era. After immigrating to the States in 1937, he was often chosen to represent a myriad of ethnicities and appeared in films such as Road to Morocco, Monster from Green Hell, The Magnificent Seven, and William Castle's Mr. Sardonicus. We've already seen him here in the episode Static, and he'll be back for The Gift. Anthony Carbone was Cristo. His career had him taking on plenty of supporting roles in Roger Corman American International Productions. I wrote AIP Productions, so that means I wrote Productions twice. Okay. Like The Pit and the Pendulum and A Bucket of Blood. In 1974, he appeared in The Last Porno Flick, but I think they kept making those movies anyway. Garcia was played
Misleading
by.
name there.
I know. It's titillating. Garcia was played by Rodolfo Hoyos Jr. The bulk of his career was as a studio genre player in the 1950s with a standout role in 1956's The Brave One. Finally, we've got author Batanides as Tabal. Batanides appeared in a slew of TV guest appearances, mostly westerns and sci-fi. Though he wears scientist blue as Diamato in the Star Trek episode That Which Survives, he gets red-shirted awfully quickly. He'll later appear in the TV movie Evil Roy Slade and end his career as Mr. Kirkland in 4 Police Academy movies. So
Well,
that's
you never know when Lee Merriweather's going to show up and say that she is for you, and when that happens, it's just time to go.
yeah. So apparently, I guess this is where they take Tackleberry to meet Pops, and Pops is this guy. So it's. I mean, the last time I saw a Police Academy movie, I was like young enough to think it was funny. So
The last one I think I watched was I saw it in a theater and right around 1991. So I think Bobcat Goldthwait was involved. There were balloons. Maybe somebody could tell us which episode that was. I think it was probably around 4 or 5.
no, I remember probably 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 regularly getting the VHSs for as a kid, but
Mhm.
not getting the first one much, which is the only one that might that is generally considered to maybe not be horrible. But
Yeah, little interesting side note on the episode of That Which Survives on Star Trek. Um, Story credit by Michael Richards. Not me, I wasn't around, and not the Seinfeld actor. That was one of the gnomes de plume that Dorothy DC Fontana would use if she didn't exactly want her name associated with a certain episode.
I can get
And
that.
it was the name of her two brothers, Michael and Richard, and
Oh,
that's she
okay.
used that for a number of stories.
So she basically Alan Smithied that episode. Okay.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I've got the prologue up for you here. So if you'll have a run, you can do your Peter Falk if you want.
Oh, I don't know that I didn't practice a Peter Falk.
Oh,
I'll
okay. Maybe you were alluding to that. So maybe you were just alluding to doing a Serling or not. You can do
yeah,
whatever you
no,
want.
I think I'll try a Serling.
Just don't turn on the crazy reverby voice filter that people are going to hear in about 2
Okay.
weeks. Little teaser for that. Okay, go ahead.
All right. This is the face of Ramos Clemente. A year ago, a beardless, nameless worker of the dirt who plotted behind a mule, furrowing someone else's land. And he looked up at a hot Central American sun and he pledged the impossible. He made a vow that he would lead an avenging army against the tyranny that put the ache in his back and the anguish in his eyes. And now, 1 year later, the dream of the impossible has become a fact. In just a moment, we will look deep into this mirror and see the aftermath of a rebellion in the Twilight Zone.
All righty. We'll throw our observations at the episode. First off, the thing that got me was just how they start off. Okay, here's Fidel Castro, here's Che, but no, it's definitely not. This is Central America.
This is the
Not.
Central
This is not
America.
Cuba.
Yeah, and these are two totally different people, like different names, different country.
And there's the one where someone actually says to him like something along the lines of like, "Who do you think you are, Fidel Castro?" It's like, yes, that's right.
Yes, that's exactly what I think I am. Look.
And, and again, it's a little bit of a low blow to keep citing things you see because you're watching completely crisp Blu-ray. But
Mhm.
the amount of fake mustache was just amazing, as you could see
Okay, yeah, I
the
was watching it.
applications.
Yeah, I watched it streaming on Paramount Plus, so I didn't get that same in your face kind of fake facial hair. In fact, I even wondered honestly if Peter Falk didn't grow a beard for the role. Apparently, he didn't, though,
No, he
according to
did.
the Blu-ray.
I mean, there were a few people that seemed to have some real hair, but like I just noticed a couple people like, oh, that's definitely an application there, or maybe they like had the mustache but not the beard or something,
Yeah,
Um,
D'Alessandro definitely looked fake beard and mustache
yeah, yeah.
from Jump Street. But Peter Falk looked a little more convincing to me. Then again, like I said, and we've had this, this discussion a number of times with streaming services, and not to pick on Paramount Plus, but it seems kind of particularly with them it's the resolution leaves a little to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, I watched these a couple times, so it was like the first time I was not sitting there like, counting the hairs of a fake beard or anything. Maybe that was like the third time where I was like, hey, let's take a little more of a closer look at this. So, but
Good. Well, I was really I love the simplicity of the episode. I mean, everything taking place in one room, right? I mean, this was a one room. Did anything happen outside of that room?
well, that guy fell out of another window, but
Fell
yeah.
out of a balcony, like, but from that same room, right?
Yeah, I mean, you might have seen my note, Twilight Zone Death by Window number 47, right?
I did see that. Defenestration.
There's one what's it? I think there's one a few weeks ago where someone's kind of like nearby a window or like, oh, that's another little preview for the Midnight Sun where someone is like kind of lingering around a window. Like they're gonna fall out the window. They don't, but yeah, just assume they're about to because don't get near a window in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, but I guess that was a good way to offset the budget for all the guest stars, because it seemed like it was a kind of a large cast, and
Yeah,
just kind of one room, a balcony, a mirror, and a door for Father Thomas to kind of hide behind for a couple of minutes
Very
towards the
much
end.
a bottle episode, I guess. Well, more like a stage play in this case, but
Yeah.
just a couple. I had a couple style notes. When he first comes in, there's the large picture of the previous dictator, and I was just like, man, I really wish that was like Vigo the Carpathian. That would be so great.
Or some kind of it, or whoever, I don't even know. This is kind of how ignorant I am, but whoever was, the head of government prior to Fidel Castro in Cuba could have been a very similar, inspired by shot there. Would have been some inside,
Oh yeah, but
maybe two inside.
this is Central America. So
Oh, that's right. That's right. No, it's
the other one, yeah, the this is 1961, right? So his medallion's way too small, but with the beard and stuff, I just make the next Star Trek reference. We were getting so close to Disco Bones, like in
oh yeah.
1961. So the best McCoy, of course, being
I mean,
Disco.
I know there's been some the novelization of Star Trek the Motion Picture and some other stories, but I don't think anything's canon as to like what exactly Bones was doing when Admiral Degura used that seldom used reserve activation clause.
Key
In other
Party,
words, they drafted him. I don't know, what was he doing, man? Like,
Key Party. It's the 70s.
yeah, the key party, man. I thought maybe he was in a revolution somewhere.
Yeah, a disco revolution. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if that movie does have a flaw, it's that the next scene he shows up in uniform and shaven. So that's not cool. These guys are never going to shave in this episode. But
No, they're not.
how famous was? Well, I mean, neither of us really know. But how famous was Che Guevara in 1961? I feel like I'm not sure when he really started getting on people's dorm walls. Did he have to, die first for that?
I have no idea. I really don't like that whole scene was kind of before my time, and the whole yeah, he never showed up on my dorm wall. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of when he would have like started appearing. Let's see, when I was in high school, and lots of Bob Marley around, but not Che Guevara somewhere.
Yeah, seems like a hippie kind of Woodstock, you know, late 60s kind of thing probably.
Yeah, I mean, I read a notable book on him a few years ago, so I don't remember who the author or what the name was, but it's supposed to be one of the more definitive ones, and it's quite interesting to follow a revolutionary's career, right? So,
Mhm.
because if don't know, I mean, after the Cuban Revolution, he went and got himself involved in a few African revolutions and then a few South American revolutions, and that's where the CIA sort of caught up with him.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
Fidel Castro was living in these large, well, now government buildings where Che was out like in a tent most of the time. So,
Mhm.
um, I don't know if, and the fact that I think he was kind of like they kind of wanted him to go start some other revolution so he wouldn't stay in Cuba and be popular.
Okay. I guess so so maybe that was definitely a, connection to the level of uh paranoia or kind of not, I guess, not an example of keeping your enemies close, keeping your enemies far away,
Yeah, in
or
this
your
case,
potential revolutionary.
well, there's always that guy, isn't there? I mean, when Rod Serling wrote this episode, I mean, he already knew about Trotsky, right?
Mhm.
So it's easy to peg him as a Trotsky. I guess he doesn't come across as the right hand man, and Che wasn't quite a right hand man. I mean, Castro had his brother for that, right? So,
Yeah, it seemed like in this, D'Alessandro was the right hand man, and ironically, the first one to be I
Trotsky.
don't know if pushing off a balcony is considered an execution. And if he's not a murderer, if he wasn't a murderer, was he a murderer? Because you can't. Everybody knows, Matt,
well,
that you can't murder a murderer. They can only be executed.
there is the theory that every head of state is a war criminal.
That's yeah. That's an
you know,
interesting theory.
and
Probably has some validity to it.
in
Um,
America, it's like let's see, what presidents didn't like technically kill someone? And I'm like, I guess Carter didn't. Maybe I'm
They
not
say
sure.
he was the only guy that there were never shots fired during his presidency, and that there is, like, in the entire history of the United States, there's been a very small number of like single digit years where that's been the case.
Yeah, yeah. I think I heard 17
Okay.
since 1776, so not too far above single digits.
Yeah. So single digit on each hand if you had seven fingers on one hand.
Right, right. If you're sort of person who needs to get to 20 and you look at your toes.
Yeah. Um, and possibly the only president that didn't do it for all four of theirs. So other presidents might have had a two or three good years and then like one off year. And
What's
you
a
know,
comedian that said like like every president gets like two free contracts or something.
yeah,
It's
that'll
just
work. One of the things that I thought was really, really, I think, well done in the episode was the often unmentioned, although they did mention it a couple of times, sound of executions in the background. The
yeah, yeah.
countdown and fire and the gunshots, and then again and again and again. And Father Tomas pointed out that it's been going on for a week, and the people are growing appalled.
I guess that's nice. You want to see your stuff on screen, but like you're like this was all in one room, but you very clearly see like execution scenes and the two inner circle guys kind of rolling up to the base and getting murdered, or assassinated
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Like you see that play out in your head because we see those sorts of things on the news or whatever all the time. So we've
Oh
seen it
yeah,
in other movies. So it's very easy just to kind of extrapolate and have it play in your head for this. So
yeah. There's no reason for I mean, that was done very well with a phone call where he's where uh the dictator said do it, and then he got the call back saying it was done. I mean, there's no reason, I didn't think at all, to add another scene in there and show something like that. That just, I think, it was done really, really well, and very effectively, I thought, too, without having to see it. Another thing that got me too was where the Peter Falk at one point said something along, I know what these people are. Like, all they want is they have a short memory. They like, what do you say? They like cheap entertainment and they have a short memory.
something along those lines, which is
Yeah.
kind of right. So
Yeah. And I thought that was really, really apropos as far as, how many people think of the masses and how to, manage and govern people when they know that whatever this is, we can weather this storm, we can get through it, and we can get on to the next thing. Because at the end of the day, things like this don't get remembered long. We can, even though it's a horrible atrocity, folks will be moving on to the next thing.
yeah, something that got one. He goes basically paranoid, psychotic, and sweaty within 5 minutes, which
Well, the sweaties because it's
it's pretty hot in Central
Central
America.
America.
So it's just I guess I just did this. I just did the Midnight Sun, and there's both of them are very sweaty episodes. So the sweatiest TV you'll come across in 1961.
Yeah, the last episode I covered with you was I think 100 yards over the rim, and not as much sweat there because they're out in the desert. It's more of a dry heat.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it's bad if you well, yeah, it's just instantly evaporating. That's be quite dangerous. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
the scene with the previous despot, I guess, dictator, whatever he was.
Mhm.
I had a couple observations there. One of which he's making fun of his uniform being dirty. I'm like, that's your fault. It's dirty because if not for you, he'd probably be in a nice pressed uniform right now. Um,
Yeah.
and he gets so vindictive. It's like the Pontius Pilate wash away, except that without that David Bowie cool, that sort of thing. And I,
Yeah,
I
he
was
he definitely did throw it's almost kind of the same it's probably used time and time again. What's sticking in my mind is from Hamilton when King George came out and said, "All right, you're independent. Have at it. Now you're going to see how hard it is to lead." With one of his "You'll Be Back" tunes. So it's kind of that same thing. It's like, all right, you're in charge now. It's going to be a lot harder, a lot more complicated than you think, and there are going to be people coming from you, and you can see them in that mirror right
See, I
there.
thought of the Return of the Jedi throne room scene a little bit too, where the Emperor's like, "Go ahead, murder, and take your mantle,"
Mm-hmm.
and it just keeps chiding him along. Of
Yeah,
course, in that case, the Emperor is still going to technically be on top until things go wrong for him. But I thought of
right.
that a little bit as well. But yeah, the mirror, that was a nice scene of psychosis, nice seed. I said seed. Nice seed of psychosis for the new guy, Ramos Clemente, who is not Fidel Castro.
Not at all. But it was interesting because, like, what's sort of the a common metaphor for paranoia is always looking over your shoulder, right? You're always looking
Mm,
over your shoulder to see who's after you. Well, now you have this mirror, and you can look over your shoulder without physically looking over your shoulder. But you're using this mirror to do it. And I thought it was a great metaphor for paranoia and how you can see uh again over your shoulder without looking there and kind of see things that aren't reality because it's a mirror, but it looks an awful lot like reality. I thought it was neat.
yeah, and I love the fact that the people he's seeing are always the people in the room.
Right.
Like if I was thinking, oh, he'll see like like people who aren't there, but I'm like, no, he's seeing people that are there and just like projecting onto that. Maybe I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason to even think there's anything supernatural. The film
Yeah.
makes it supernatural because they're holding like nooses and machine guns and stuff. So
Yeah, so it was machine gun. The two guys had the knife, and then the last guy had the glass of wine. I guess I should probably point out we don't know that he was wrong. I mean,
yeah,
maybe those folks would have come after him with a machine gun, and two guys would have ganged up on him with a knife, and another guy would have tried to poison him eventually, just not then. I
it's
don't
like
think so. I think he was just losing his marbles, man.
the what's the Nirvana lyric? Just because you're not paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you.
Yeah, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
Whatever. I'm sure we bungled that line a little bit, but it's cool.
The Yeah, and that glass of wine, man, that was so full that I would have had I had my suspicions about it too. It's like, who fills a glass of wine to the that high?
I might. Well, actually, I can't drink wine. I will have a massive headache before I finish the wine. So, I live in Japan. I can't really handle Nihonshu, So, um, it's yeah. I don't know. It's like alcohol is great, but only one kind.
Yeah. We got pretty lit up on sake not too long ago and
Uh,
uh just on a night out with the boys.
yeah. See, I'll have massive regrets if I do that. So,
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The massive regrets. It's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. One part death in your cocktail. I guess that's the alcoholic part of it. So
Hmm.
that's why I like to think at least. Um, Low light mirror gazing. Ever try that?
No.
That's you kind of it's kind of like a meditational technique, but low light. So not completely dark, but not too light. And you kind of stare at your face and it kind of morphs into other stuff. So I was thinking it's not that hard to see things that aren't there in a mirror.
I'm gonna go do that tonight.
Yeah. Just yeah, kind of like a. I mean, it doesn't have to be a candle. I would use maybe this little lamp next to me, but yeah. You kind of do that for it can get creepy. It's kind of intense. So it's yeah.
I have a feeling like if I tried to do this with my wife, like after like 5 minutes, she would be like crying to get out of the room.
Right. But yeah,
she,
you can see your
she
face
gets scared and
melting.
freaked out pretty easily.
No, when I've done that, I don't see people behind me, but I'm also very close to the wall, so it would be impossible for someone to be there anyway.
Mhm.
But I just love, like, we did the shelter a few weeks ago where there's clearly nothing actually supernatural in the episode at all. Like
Right.
it's like, is it really the Twilight? I mean, it's really more of an Alfred Hitchcock presents in that sort of case, right?
Yeah.
Uh, This one, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have anything supernatural, but it's at least presented that way. So, it could be a psychotic break or a supernatural mirror. So,
Yeah, like is it even presented that way?
well, just the previous dictator is just like you're gonna. That's how it works, right? And he
Yeah, it's
buys it.
present. Yep, present. Unless he was just a master of
Mind games.
psychological gamesmanship. Yeah, or mind games. You can call it that too. Unless he was just a master of that. Yeah, apparently he may have used it. He might have been able to use it more effectively, sort of like the Tantalus device that the mirror Captain Kirk had. Might have
Yeah.
been might have kept his would be assassins at bay. Um, however, uh, um, the new guy wasn't able to master it quickly enough.
I was trying to work out his logic, which I guess also works for your mirror universe logic, which is your friends must be enemies because your friends are assassins, but you have no friends. It's kind of a
Yeah, he said you killed your friends. He was like, they were assassins, and if they're assassins, they cannot be friends.
yeah. So now he has no friends. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
that's if
I don't
everybody's either an assassin or a would-be assassin.
um I don't know if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of bad album covers, but like the worst. But one often come across is it's Freddie Gay or Freddie Gage or something, and it's has this guy who looks about 30 years old, maybe 20s or something, like knelt down at a gravestone, and the name of the album is like "All of My Friends Are Dead." I think it's like kind of a not a motivational album about the dangers of drugs. Motivational seems like the wrong word. Cautionary album.
Cautionary tale.
Yeah, something like that. But that's this guy, right?
Yeah. No, it definitely is, and I liked the character of Father Tomas coming in, sort of pleading with him for, for reason, for mercy, to turn the page, to not be the new boss, same as the old boss, and just, but sadly, I think his talk, put um put Clemente, um I was always going to say yeah, put Clemente over the edge,
Yeah.
and I don't think it definitely meant to at all. I think he was like literally just trying to help and show him that. I think the one thing he could have done differently though was he said to him, all dictators have the same ultimate assassin, and nobody recognizes it until it's too late. Nobody recognizes them until it's too late, meaning themselves. And I thought just saying one more line, like, don't let it be too late for you. You know?
Unless he was playing his own mind game.
Yeah, exactly. So he might have been, playing mind games too. Because I kind of thought that last thing was like, don't let it be too late for you. Like, yes, you're a killer. Don't be a killer today. And maybe the cycle could have gotten broken. But sadly, it was not. It ended with a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Worst
Nice
case of suicide
throw.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, nice throw of the pistol by Clemente into the mirror though. That was I mean, if that was me, I'd probably need a couple of takes, and the director would be like, dude, just throw the pistol at the mirror and break it. It's the third time we've had to bring in new drywall to repair your misses.
So basically, the Who's entire career is based on this episode. Same as the new boss. Go to the mirror boy, smash the mirror.
I didn't think of that one, but yeah, same as the old boss was definitely
I was going to
on
mention it then,
purpose.
and now we're smashing the mirror. So now we're in Tommy land. So I'm like, okay, I can't get out of this without bringing up the Who.
Mm-hmm.
They would grow notable facial hair in the 70s, of course. So, well, a few of them would.
Oh,
John Entwistle
glorious.
certainly would.
Yeah.
I guess John Entwistle grew it for all of them. Nah,
And
Townsend had a beard for a while.
yeah, and John West Entwistle probably looks like he could have been cast in this episode. He looks about as Central American as the rest of the guys do.
Except he'd have to be standing there, like also with that like Gibson, the Thunderbird or Firebird base, whatever it is. He's got to have that in his hand too. So
Yeah, and if he didn't have it, nobody would know who he was. So just give him an army hat, spray a little bit of spray sweat, and boom.
no, and the bass. Let him keep the bass. Come on, he looks cool with that. It's a cool looking instrument. Yeah. I'm having a look through. Oh yeah, he's like no one's like entertained by all of my executions. So one, he's if you think apathy is a problem now, wait for the 24-hour news cycle. I'm like, well, if you really want your executions to sizzle, do them like Aztec style or something.
You could
That'll
do
get
that,
people's
or
attention.
the guy was very predictable. It was like, I think he did a little bit of a countdown, like tres, dos, uno, fuego.
It's boring.
I mean
Go to the
that's
pyramid, rip out some
it's a
hearts,
little,
toss them down the other side.
yeah, or you could just bring in like your pro wrestler type, be like, let's get ready to execute.
There we go.
Something. There's a way to light it up. Light show. You can have like a light and sound show. But I think probably the best rule would be no executions.
Yeah.
Kind of stay away from that.
Yeah,
Um,
good to avoid. And if you're going to do it, at least have like a sharp, PR person to finesse it for you, so people aren't bored by your executions, which seems to be the case here.
if they're not bored, they should at least be because I guess the idea is to frighten people, right? Like this is what would happen to you if you go against me, right?
Right.
Is that the idea, or was it just strictly revenge on the old administration?
Well, I guess
I
it's kind
don't.
of power, absolute power corrupts absolutely sort of vibes, right?
Yeah, definitely. Um, the tail in itself though is pretty impressive. I mean, a year, one short year from being a disgruntled worker of the dirt. There's a title for you.
That's the narrative for Castro. Though, if you want to get into the weird ins and outs and spy stuff, there is suggestion that he might have been a somewhat groomed, person. Just kind of like
Aha.
how they like. Was it Lenin was kind of a discreetly shipped in by rail during World War I, which is kind of weird. He was in like Germany or something, or France, or and
Holy cow.
yeah, he's like kind of sent into this into Russia to screw things up a bit, in which he did quite successfully.
But Fidel Castro's like origin story is 1 year from zero to hero, from
It's
worker of the dirt
something
to
pretty
occupant of the
close.
palace.
It's pretty, yeah, it was a pretty quick rise. Also, they were, out in the, I guess it's a jungle in Cuba, really, really stuck in nasty jungles for a lot of that time. And, it's kind of like once you get to the tipping point, things tip, and now you're sitting in the palace. A week earlier, you're out in the woods, right? Or the
Right.
jungle. So,
Yeah, that's I also came across somewhere, or was under the impression that at one point Castro et al. Did come to the United States and say like, look, this is a dictatorship. We'd like a democracy. We'd like your help in setting that up. And the answer was no, no, we don't get involved. We
well, yeah, I mean,
sorry.
it was such a kick in the crotch to, corporate America, because they had put a lot of money into Cuba. I mean, they had,
Mm-hmm.
like, all the clubs, hotels, industrial concerns. It really burned the corporate sector when that happened, because they just
Yeah, I bet.
lost all instantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so they were, holding a bit of a grudge of their own. So I guess I'm going to
Yeah,
start.
that's
Go ahead.
unfortunate.
Yeah. I guess I'll start asking the questions I ask in these episodes. The first one being, who in this episode enters or goes through the Twilight Zone?
Well, like you said before, if at all, and like you said, it was presented, and I guess I'll take it at face value that this mirror did have, if we can believe the um deposted. That's not the right word. What do you do with a dictator? Depose the
Yeah.
deposed dictator. If we can believe them, this mirror did have some Twilight Zoney qualities. So I would say that and I have been biting my tongue. I've been trying not to say Roberto Clemente this whole time, but Ramos Clemente. I think Ramos Clemente went to the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, he'd be a strong contender. Um, the previous dictator at least has a little bit of a Twilight Zone knowledge, just being able to play that mind game so well. Like he kind of has an air of like, even though I'm about to be horribly executed, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Seem to
Like
have sort of a knowledge and maybe a mastery of it in so far as to being able to use that tool of the Twilight Zone without going into the Twilight Zone themselves.
his the revolutionary cabinet, I guess, are just like victims of the Twilight Zone in this case.
Yeah.
They don't really, well, they experience their leader and I guess their friend just like losing it suddenly.
Hmm. But that
Um
can happen anywhere.
yeah, you never know when your friend's gonna go psychotic and kill all of you.
That's just a Tuesday.
Yeah. So they're kind of, yeah, adjacent, but yeah, and this is definitely a morality play sort of episode. I mean, some aren't, some are more ambiguous, but when it's a
Right.
morality play and it's like, do they deserve it? It's like, well, it's a morality play. But if you'd like to add anything to that, it does
Yeah, no, I think it
Clemente
definitely
deserve his fate?
was. Yeah, I think it definitely was. What I saw was an exploration of um like knowing yourself and knowing what your goals are, because it's easier, I think, to sometimes, map out that course of action and achieve an objective. And if you haven't planned properly, then you don't know what comes after that. And, one example that just comes to mind is, scaling Mount Everest, right? It's not enough just to get to the top of the mountain. You've got to know how you're going to get back down. And lots of people have died on the way back down, and because they didn't have that, they just thought about how they're going to achieve their objective, but not what comes after that. And I kind of see that here, where Clemente knew he wanted to seize power, but to what end? Was it to create a more fair environment for people to get to, live their lives, be granted the rewards of their own efforts and their own hard work, be able to save and live and, be happy and, provide for their families? Or does he just want these people now to serve him, and he doesn't have to work the dirt anymore? Like, what is the ultimate plan? And if you don't have one, then you'll just sort of fall into a vacuum. And I think that vacuum was kind of what he saw in the mirror, sort of bolstered by his own paranoia. And probably, I mean, let's face it. I mean, in that last year, I mean, I'm sure he killed a lot of people. He saw a lot of assassinations. I'm sure he saw a lot of backstabbing, probably compromised his principles a lot over the course of that year to achieve this objective. I mean, that's all a recipe for trauma.
Yeah,
And,
I was thinking like a year earlier, he might have had like, he probably had the revolutionary rhetoric, like the people will have the power, everything will be spread equally, and none of those statements mean anything if you don't have the details, right? Um,
right.
I've loved recently how it, this is not just them, it's probably a lot of things, but there's a specific flavor of this. I'm going to bring up like Disney copy like on their websites for cruises or theme parks, and it's all just and you know D23 announcements. I was like, Disney has the magic of the power of dreams, and the dreams will recreate your stories, which will be magical. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. You're just saying dreams, magics, and stories a lot.
That doesn't make sense.
I mean, I should find it like a specific example, but I mean, it's just like, hey, we got to fill a paragraph here. People are going to look at like the pictures of our nice new cruise ship, and maybe
Mhm.
they'll read this, and it needs to like at least not turn them off from the cruise ship, I guess. So
Yeah. But without that commitment to do things, differently going forward, it's just kind of that cycle that's going to repeat. And there is, I had a professor when I was in grad school. He actually sat on the board that reviewed my graduate project. And I'll never forget this. He said, you could have the most altruistic goal in the history of humanity. Like maybe you want to save, the white-eared pigeon. Like they're endangered, and you want to make your life's mission to save these animals. So you form the White-Eared Pigeon Preservation Society. And now you're the president of the White-Eared Pigeon Preservation Society. And as soon as that society and as soon as that office exists, your goal changes from saving the white-eared pigeons to self-preservation.
Yeah,
Because if you're
maintaining
not in
your
charge,
organization.
you can't do any of the work that's, going to be required to save these folks. And I think that's what we saw. Maybe he was had loftier goals a year ago. But seeing what he's seen over the course of the last year, he either thinks or he knows that there's an assassination or an assassin around every corner, because he's just been that. He's been doing that for the last year.
Here's kind of a Twilight Zone adjacent sort of metaphor for that, I guess. You know, they again when staring in the mirrors, I do meditation stuff, and for a while I was like, you doing stuff to have like lucid dreams, right? And it's cool if you have a lucid dream, it's awesome. But I
Yeah.
actually found I prefer vivid dreams because you have a lucid dream and like, okay, I'm in charge. What now? It's like, well, I'd rather let my subconscious throw a really interesting vivid dream at me, you know? It's like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
like
That's,
that's going to
that
be more
is,
imaginative than the one I'm controlling.
yeah, I think you're 100% right.
And that's where this guy is. Like he's now in control, and like, has no clue what to do about it, right? So, um,
All he knows is that all he thinks is that everybody's coming after him, just like everybody was going after the last guy.
I guess but of course the last guy was terrible too, probably. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but here's the weird twist of this episode, simply because we're watching it in 2023, is now we know that this guy just kept going on for what, 60 more years.
Yeah.
Like the Cuban oh, it's not Cuba, yes it is. Like that revolution technically was very successful because it still has not completely ended.
Well, I mean, the reign has been successful. I don't know,
Well, for the goals of the
where.
revolution, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, it looks to me a lot, again, knowing nothing, that Cuba's kind of stuck in the 50s. There's not real manufacturing down there. There's not real economic growth. I don't know whether the people are happy and healthy and provided for. I don't know. It just sort of seems like it's a place that's stuck in time, trying to keep the same cars running for the last 70 years.
I have a I, I had a student about 10 years ago who he was Japanese, so doesn't have like the American embargo, and he was a pretty serious baseball player and went to several like baseball trips to Cuba.
Uh-huh.
So and he was like, yeah, it's kind of, there's little problems with sometimes with supplies and stuff like that, but obviously on feet on the ground, people after 60 years, people are living their lives, right? Definitely some flaws in the system, but everyone
That's
says,
everywhere.
I mean, there's to certain degrees how many flaws in the system you have. So, I mean, if it's choose Cuba or North Korea, Cuba's looking a little better than that. So,
Yeah, I would say so.
food's better. Well, Korean food's pretty good, but
And and I've got friends with dual citizenship that go there on the regular, and they say they love it.
yeah. And I mean, honestly, if it would be very charming to see a bunch of old cars on the street.
Oh heck yeah, yeah.
I
That's
mean, although I'm sure they would love to, get their hands on like a Honda Fit as well. So,
I bet.
where would you like to place this episode on the tripometer? 0 being not trippy at all, 5 being extremely trippy.
Oh man, I think this might be. While it's and again, this is not, and I'll just say this. This is not a reflection on the episode, right? I think this is a very good episode of the Twilight Zone. But I don't think it's a very trippy episode. I think it's probably somewhere around a 1.5 or so. Because really, I'm I'm kind of leaning with that score. I'm leaning into the fact that, or not the fact, the opinion that this was all a manifestation, inside Clemente's head. That it was not, that mirror did not have any kind of magical powers, and because of that, I think it was a kind of a more standard, paranoia is going to get you kind of episode.
See, I'm going for a completely middle of the road 2.5 because, like you said, what's going on inside his head is extremely trippy because he's losing it. Whereas what's going outside is brutally real with executions happening
Right.
outside. So, yeah, to me, that's a right in the center. So,
Yeah, they average each other out.
but yeah, it seems to work out for me. Did you have any final thoughts you wanted to throw out on the mirror?
Yeah, I guess, and I had no idea that that I would even stumble across this, when we sat down to record. But just kind of that philosophy is that if you have a goal to, if one has a goal to help people or to achieve something or to achieve a position of influence, um, it's just as important to keep that dream alive when you achieve that goal, and not just succumb to the trappings of power and position that you've achieved. That, remember what it's like to be that worker in the dirt, worker of the dirt, and to help other folks that are in the same position you were in then, to have it a little bit easier to move up, to have opportunities. And because it's really, really easy to just sort of abandon all those things under the guise of, okay, I've got to take care of me, because if I don't take care of me, then I won't be able to help anybody else. And then all you're doing is taking care of yourself, and you never help anybody else. So that's sort of my takeaway, and something that, is going to give me a little bit of refocus on things. Just kind of going forward.
Well, yeah, politically, it's like kind of the catch 22 of civilization, that the people who want power are probably not the people who are going to be able to wield power well.
Right.
I mean, that goes all the way back to Plato, who's put the smart people in charge, maybe. But we're still not really there. So, and
Yeah.
hey, he could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe a plutocracy is just as a dictatorship. So, I mean, you
We'll
read the
see.
Communist
Hopefully we'll figure
Manifesto.
it out, right? There's folks that think there's a fight between two different sides, and I think the struggle is to find the right balance. And in order to find the right balance, the two quote unquote sides have to keep talking to each other, and comparing ideas, and let the best ideas take over.
Yeah. I guess we'll wrap up today. So, I know with the Orville, you're not like firing on full cylinders, but when you do fire your cylinders, they're pretty notable these days. With
Thanks.
the in between interviews, if you
Yeah,
want to
we
tell
had
people
a
about
we had
those.
a good one a couple of two supplemental episodes ago with Brandon Braga. In fact, we chatted for about an hour and 45 minutes, so we split that into two, and they're available. Mission Log the Orville. And then we just had a really, really nice conversation with Joel McNeely, who is one of four musical composers on the show. And he sat down with us and talked about the release of the Orville New Horizons soundtrack, which covers the season 3 episodes. 78 songs, 4+ hours of music. It's a lot of fun. It really is. Very neat episode. And we're gonna, as soon as my illustrious co-host is and I are able to, we are going to sit down and chat about the comic books that we touched on when we interviewed David A. Goodman. But we're going to do the mission log treatment on each one of those as well. And we're going to do that while we're waiting for season 4, which I think there's been some rumblings, and I'm probably more confident now, cautiously optimistic that there will be a season 4 and more Mission Log the Orville.
Yeah, streaming world is so weird where, it's like, oh, a lot of people really like this show. A lot of people are watching the show, but then the show just vanishes because of some weird business decision where, because everything, I guess it's kind of like, it's like the communism of popular entertainment, right? Everything comes from the same pot now, more or less.
Yeah, so I look at that and I think, okay, so Hulu I think, had a need for the show. But does Disney have a need for the show? With Disney having MCU and Star Wars and and so much other content. And now it's looking like Disney may back off its acquisition of Hulu and folding that in. So I don't know, but you're exactly right. I don't think it has anything to do with the quality of the show or the number of viewers. It's how much money is spent on it, and does it drive subscriptions? I think it drives subscriptions. But if people aren't watching, um, for that show, will they watch for something similar? It's and the couple of folks that I've spoken to or heard speak about that produce shows for streaming, they have no idea. They don't know if people like it or if people don't. They don't know if people watching it or if they're not. They don't know if it's making money for the streamer or not. Like, all they know is at some point the streaming service will come to them and say, we want more. And
Yeah.
that's the only indication that they have. That's it.
Yeah. I was just seeing I think it was an Ansem Out Twitter post yesterday. It's like, please stop asking me when the next season comes out. I'm the last person who gets told this. I know you see my
Exactly.
face in the show. I'm the last person to get the news.
Yeah. And we're all looking forward to season 2 of Strange New Worlds. And on Wednesday nights, we've been doing a rewatch of each episode of the Orville. We're about halfway done with season 2 right now, and listening. So, kind of the idea is some people just show up to chat, and that's great. Other people will rewatch the episode. We just did last week a happy refrain, and as of this recording, and chatted about it. So some people watch the episode, I do, and then kind of re-listen to the podcast, and we chat about it. And we're working our way through seasons 2, and we already did season 1, and we'll kind of finish up season 3, and hopefully that'll kind of kick the can down the road enough to get us to a season 4 release date. And we're doing that on the Roddenberry patrons Discord account. So if you want to go to patreon.com/mission log, you can sign up to be a patron, and that'll give you access to the Discord. And then you can chat with us on Wednesday nights about the Orville if that's something. I would love to have you there.
And actually, we are there too. Time Enough Podcast. We do a bi-weekly Sunday night one where we talk about the last 2 episodes of the Twilight Zone that appear on the podcast. To be really confusing, I have my own Patreon under Podcastius, where I will also do occasional chats with the Patreon. So there's like 2 varieties of chats. Maybe at one time they combine, but it's like, well, I have actual patrons, so I just send them invites and let's talk about it. So
awesome.
So either way, we try to interface with our audience a little more. So that's fun. And at Podcastius, we do other podcasts. We talk about the weird side of Disney films and the occult Disney podcast. We're just wrapping up a run on the '60s series, The Prisoner, which will definitely screw with your mind, kind of Twilight Zone adjacent. And we're just starting a new one called Films and Filth, in which we look at the top 100 and the bottom 100 films as rated by IMDb users. The first run of films was Kurosawa's Ikiru, followed by 2001: A Space Travesty, followed by followed by Ballistics X versus Sever. And then at that point, I think, Mike, your schedule, we're going to do North by Northwest. So you'll be on there relatively. I think you might be the first guest on the show. So
great.
Do get into that. For video game listeners, there's the game show. There's Luke Loves Pokemon, and there is a new podcast called Hyrule Field Report about the Zelda games. So I believe that, I don't know if I said Hyrule right. Hyrule, I don't know. I'm not really a gamer. I'm not on the gaming podcast. I'm on the movie ones.
Sounded good to me.
Okay, so I'm gonna go. Is it screeing? Is that when you stare into the mirror? You're screeing. I think that's maybe what they call it. There's some mystical term for doing
dim
that.
light mirroring.
Okay, I'm gonna go dim light mirroring. Actually, I'm not, because it's morning here, but yeah, maybe you are. Okay, I'll go ahead and actually, I'll just go ahead and hit the recording now.